Disclaimer: I am not an audio engineer, nor am I a professional musician, but an amateur guitarist and hobbyist who enjoys playing, recording and mixing my own performances purely for my own amusement. This presentation shows some of the ways that you can improve on Zoom's audio for live music and singing performances. Each of these setups has been tested and used by myself, or another member of the Guitar Retreats community, and work well. I will be looking at a range of possible setups. From one that will cost nothing extra to others that require additional equipment. Imagine that the garden hose is your internet connection. It works well and everything flows smoothly. Using conference software like Zoom greatly increases the demands on your connection, and soon it goes from a manageable stream to a torrent. To manage this torrent, developers at Zoom have used a number of filters and algorithms to control it. Zoom was designed primarily as a communication application for remote meetings, and is optimized for speech, and prioritizes this over other sounds, such as music, which it can regard as extraneous noise. This is great for conferencing, not so good if you want to play music. Fortunately, there are things we can do to improve this, and developers at Zoom, knowing that many want to use it for music, are constantly introducing new features. The recently introduced high fidelity being an example. Before we have a closer look at some of the audio setups, do the following. Pick up an instrument, guitar, uke, mandolin, or just sing, and listen to the sound in the room you are sitting. Give it a strum, listening carefully as you play. How does it sound to you? Both these recordings were recorded using the same instrument, the same microphone, the same distance from the microphone, and the same Zoom audio settings. The first was in my kitchen, which is full of hard surfaces, and the second in the room where I practice. This has a carpet, shelves, and lots of other stuff to break up the sound.
Slaughtered, gutted, and heartbroken, no spirit, oh no soul. Slaughtered, gutted, and heartbroken, no spirit, oh no soul.
I am not suggesting that you set up a sound studio, but it is worth thinking carefully about the room or area you are using for your performance. You will probably want to have some brightness to your room, and equally, you probably want to avoid an anechoic chamber. That's a room designed to completely absorb reflections of sound. As an absolute minimum, you need to turn on original sound, and this can be found in the audio settings of Zoom. The first recording has original sound turned off. The second has original sound turned on. If your audience complains of an echo when you are performing, you have to make sure that echo cancellation is also selected in the audio settings. If you don't know how to do this, then have a look at the videos and support material in the Dropbox folder. Or pop over to the Guitar Retreats YouTube channel, where you will find the information required to set up Zoom, and make these adjustments. Next to these adjustments in the audio settings, the most important factor in decent sound is using a decent external microphone. A search on the internet will result in a long list of possibilities, ranging from inexpensive to more pricey well-known brands. This first recording is using an inexpensive Tonor Q9 USB microphone. The second recording uses a Rode NT1 USB, which is the USB version of the Rode NT1 Studio microphone. This next option is possibly the cheapest, particularly if, like me, you have accumulated a collection of gear over the years. In this collection, it is likely that you have a fairly decent XLR microphone, such as a Shure SM58. This setup requires an additional piece of gear, in an audio interface. An audio interface is a device that allows you to connect a microphone and additional instruments to your computer. There is a huge range of audio interfaces available, from the very inexpensive, like this Behringer Euphoria UM2 at just £30, to expensive units costing several hundreds of pounds. The smaller units usually come with two inputs. The cheapest will offer an XLR input and a standard 1/4-inch jack input. The more expensive, like a Focusrite Scarlett, will come with two XLR inputs. The preamp on the 1/4-inch inputs tend not to be as sensitive as the XLR, and are unlikely to work in Zoom. For this reason, the cheaper unit will only allow you to use a microphone, and if you want to plug your instrument in as well, you will need to spend a little more on a device with more than one XLR input. This recording uses the Behringer Euphoria alongside a cheap Shure SM58 copy. This setup, including the microphone and audio interface, would cost around £45.
Slaughtered, gutted, and heartbroken, with no spirit or no soul.
Another option is to use a USB audio interface mixer. This lets you connect microphones and instruments to your computer, and gives you a little more control over the texture of your sound, by using simple EQ controls, and possibly some inbuilt effects. Just like all of the other gear and devices described so far, the choice of USB audio interface mixers is huge. This recording uses an Alesis Multimix 4, and it is coupled with a genuine Shure SM58.
Slaughtered, gutted, and heartbroken, with no spirit or no soul.
Like me, you may already have a good mixer amongst your accumulated gear. Mine is a Mackie Pro FX6. If you do, then it is possible to use an inexpensive audio interface, like the Behringer Euphoria, and plug your mixer into this. I use the Mackie plugged into a Scarlett audio interface. This lets me add another microphone, or an additional instrument such as a ukulele. The advantages I find in this setup is that I have far more control over the texture of the sound, and can add effects like reverb to my audio. This is the setup that I used for the live demonstration. Alongside the Shure SM58, which I sing into, I have used a small T-Bone instrument microphone that picks up the ukulele acoustically. The ukulele has also been plugged into one of the other XLR inputs. I have used a low-cut filter and a bit of EQ on the uke. I have added a bit of reverb and EQ to the vocals. But, before we listen to the demonstration, listen to this.
Without love, the love was so strong. As I still walk on, I think of the things we've done together. My heart's running.
Wow! I think you will agree, that sounded absolutely terrible? But, this is exactly how awful you will sound if you use Zoom straight out the box, without any adjustments or additional gear. You don't want that. Do you? This playing and singing may not be perfect. But, the recording sounds so much better.
As I walk along, I wonder what went went wrong with our love, a love that was so strong. As I still walk on, I think of the things we've done together while our hearts were young. I'm walking.
This is my setup. Guitar Retreats tutor, Paul Nicholas, has a very portable, simple setup. He uses a Rode NT USB Mini connected to an iPad Pro. Guitar Retreats tutor, Adam Franklin, uses a Rode NT Studio microphone, which is connected to a Zoom recorder and a laptop. Stu's setup is similar to Adam's, in that he uses a laptop alongside a Focusrite Scarlett 2i2, and a Studio Projects condenser microphone. Guitar Retreats regular, Dave Bowden, uses an Alesis Multimix 4 USB audio interface mixer, with an MXL condenser microphone, and a mini PC. He gets a great sound out of this setup. Summing up. Think carefully about where you are going to set up. Do your research. Make the simple audio adjustments in Zoom. Test your setup and record yourself playing. There is a short help file showing you how to do this in the Dropbox folder. Make sure that you and your guitar can be seen, and check that there is sufficient light to see you. I hope that you found this presentation useful, and that you can glean some information from it for your own setup. If you have any questions, then please don't hesitate to contact me. You can contact me by email, using the address below. Thanks for watching.